Mitch Light, welcome back to Tuscaloosa, Alabama. I hope you're doing well.
I'm doing great. Just to be clarify, I'm not supposed to be on until 6, right? You guys are just talking college football till 6 because I got things to do, Ryan, this afternoon.
No. I mean, listen, we talk college football. You know this.
I know. I'm just kidding.
We talk 4 hours a day. I'm sorry your Predators are not working a part of the conversation. Okay, it's just we don't talk hockey in Tuscaloosa. We don't know anything about it.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, as you know, as this town has changed up here in Nashville, where 10 years ago, 5 years ago, you'd be talking college football or college baseball. Actually, in late May and June, attention turns to college baseball, but it is all Predators right now. It's just I never thought I'd see the town like this.
Yeah, it's pretty electric. I had a chance to see, and I am a hockey guy. I mean, when I was out in Denver, I had a chance to see the Predators out there. Play Colorado. And I know we didn't get you on talk about hockey, but you could see that team had a lot of offense, and they scored a ton there in Denver, and you look back, and now they're a few wins away from a Stanley Cup, which is kind of crazy that you would even think that. But that team has really grabbed the attention of the South, I know, especially in that area.
Yeah, no doubt about it. But I'm sure we're here to talk about college football, not hockey. Since my hockey knowledge is not, it sounds like your hockey knowledge is deeper than mine.
I don't even know the rules. So let's because I'll embarrass myself. I mean, when they call things, I'm like, what do they call that for? All right, but we do know what a legal procedure is, and we know what a good football team looks like.
But we don't know what targeting is, because I don't think anybody does. But go ahead, Ryan.
No, we do not know what targeting is. I mean, it's changed pretty much different. But let me ask you a generic question about the SEC. Sure. Do you expect the league to begin to make steps to get back to where they were 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago? Will the SEC be stronger in 2017?
That's a great question, and it's not all dependent on the SEC teams. I think what you're seeing is teams in the Big Ten, East, and the ACC Atlantic. It's a two-way street. I mean, the fact that the teams in the SEC East haven't been as good, that's opened the door for some other teams. I think there's going to continue to be great competition among the top 5 or 10 teams in the country because of the Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, Florida State, Clemson, Washington. That group of teams, I think that they've got the right coaches in place. So it's not just dependent on these SEC teams, but if you want to judge a league by the overall depth, I think that's where the SEC can get back to where it was, where teams like Georgia, Florida, and Tennessee shouldn't be in the top 15, top 18, top 20. Right? They should be in the top 10. Now, not all 3 every year, but that's where the league has to get better, in my opinion. Is that next tier? You're always, right now, you're always going to have Alabama, and then maybe one other true national championship contender. It's teams 2 through 6 or 7. That made this league so great that have not been very good, or just relatively not very good in recent years.
If you threw all 14 coaches in a group and you tried to evaluate them, how would you summarize what the group of head coaches in this SEC looks like?
Underwhelming. And I think that's part of the problem. And we've had, this is well documented. It's not a unique opinion to Athlon, but we had a feature in the magazine last year. Look what the ACC's done in recent years. They hired Justin Fuente, or great fit at Virginia Tech. Mark Richt, who maybe had worn out as well, fit at Miami. And the list of coaches in the ACC right now, quite frankly, is more impressive than the list in the SEC. I mean, Kirby Smart might end up being a great head coach at his alma mater, but underwhelming in his first year, 7-5 there. They win the bowl game to get to 8-5. LSU has maybe one of the best top 5 programs in the country, and Ed Ogeron might do well there. But again, you're hiring a head coach who had a horrible record at another SEC school. So you're not seeing the rock star head coaches outside of Nick Saban. Obviously, Steve Spurrier, that whole that whole group has kind of moved on. But I think that's part of the problem with the league is questionable coaching hires, and maybe too much trying to be like Alabama rather than just going out and hire the best coach for your respective school.
All right, what do you see in the Crimson Tide in 2017, 2018 as we open up this year, coming up at about 102 days away from Alabama football? What do you see?
I think they'll be good at football again. it's just, they were our preseason number one. We didn't really think about it too much, in our preseason meeting. We got Ohio State 2, Florida State 3, Washington 4, but on paper, I think Alabama is clearly the best of that group. Love the running attack more so than probably. You tell me. I mean, I'm more excited about this group of running backs in the depth than maybe any time in the last 3 or 4 years, which is really saying something. Don't see any huge weakness. On paper, you're looking at some big losses in the front seven on defense, but I follow recruiting enough to know the top guys and the top 250, top 300 guys, and all these Alabama guys are that their household names to be by the time they're in their second, when they get to Alabama. That doesn't mean they're all stars, but I'm excited to watch, guys like, Rashaan Evans and then you got the young guy like Dylan Moses, this next tier of stars come through. Now, Alabama's done a phenomenal job, and that's the secret to the success there is not just recruiting these guys, but keeping them in the fold, letting them learn from the older guys. So by the time that they're in their second, third, fourth year in their program, they're ready to, emerge. Like a guy like Deshaun Hand, who, I think going into his senior year was the number one player by some recruiting services, maybe didn't stay there. But the fact that he's in his senior year at Alabama and is yet to be a dominant player, it's kind of interesting, but also kind of tells you, again, the culture there, that they retain guys like this in this era when so many guys are transferring. So, just kind of some quick thoughts there. I mean, I think the quarterback position is going to be really interesting. Jalen Hurts was the offensive player of the year in the SEC, and, depending on who you talk to, they say they got a guy who's even more talented there. So it's another intriguing Alabama team, and just kind of just eager to see how it unfolds.
Mitch, you've been in this business a long time. I think I featured you on this program for 15 years. We have this annual conversation, so you've been in a lot longer than that. But let me ask you, it's unheard of when you think about 10 players drafted in the NFL draft leaving. You had 3 or 4 free agency. You could probably easily get that number up to 15 guys that are currently on an NFL roster. They may not make it until September, but they're currently on a roster. And then be that number one team. Back up just for a minute. That's crazy to think about that many players lost to the NFL and they're your number one team. What does that make a statement about what Nick Saban's really been able to accomplish here?
Just, it's just it's the recruiting, obviously, whatever, it's 7 straight years with the number one class. And it's not, there's been other programs that have had recruiting success, but they don't retain them. And I'm not, just look around the SEC, how many, Tennessee with these great classes, and then you look back 3 years later and, and I'm just making this number up, but it's like 14 of the 27 signees are gone. That's just, not that Alabama doesn't lose any players, but they retain so many of these guys, and it's the culture, and they know why they're going to there. They know that they might not star right away. Now, some of them do, but a lot of them don't. And it's just kind of a program that gets the benefit of the doubt in the preseason. Now, we probably talked about this a lot in years past. We like to judge each team differently. Yeah, each team on its own merit. Just because the name says Alabama, let's just don't automatically put them number one. Let's look and see what they have. What are their strengths and their weaknesses? But Alabama's actually the one team where we don't do that. We just say it's Alabama until they prove they're not going to be a top 2 or 3 team. Who are we to say they're not going to be with the players they've recruited? Clemson's kind of getting to that point. Now they're not at they won the national championship, obviously, but a couple years ago they lost a lot of players, and we sat in our predictions meeting and said, they can't replace these guys. They can't replace all those defensive players, those guys in the offensive line. And we had them picked second in the division, and maybe 10th, and they did. They showed that they could. And then last year, the same thing. They could replace all those guys. So it takes time for programs to kind of get that culture and get that situation where they can just keep replacing the 5 or 6 all-conference guys with 7 or 8 draft picks. But it's amazing. I mean, I've been in Athlon for 17 years, and Alabama has clearly been on the most dominant run in college football during that span.
Is it better than USC?
I think so. I think it's got it was 4 national titles in 7 years. Is it 4 and 8 now? I lose track.
Well, it's it's 4 and 8. Yeah, right. It is 4 and 8.
4 and 8. So I think so. USC had a great run there. Won 2 national championships. I think so. The interesting thing is how and when will it end? Like USC had it rolling. You tell, man, I can't envision a time when USC is not great. Well, they ran into NCAA problems, and then Pete Carroll left. If Nick Saban coaches 3 or 4 or 5 more years and retires, what happens? I mean, you cannot stay at this level for 10, 15 years. Something will happen. So, I mean, from the outside looking in, I think it's intriguing. I'm sure Alabama fans don't want to even think about it a time when they're not a preseason top 2 or 3 team. But yeah, it's crazy to think that and it's kind of boring to go into every year saying, okay, Alabama's the preseason number 1 team. But again, they deserve it. They've played to that level. Even the years they don't win a national championship, they're right there pretty much all season long.
Mitch Light right now from Athlon Sports. The publication is on your newsstand right now waiting for you. You can find more information if you're outside of the area, you're looking for your regional cover. You can buy your magazine, athlonsports.com. Mitch Light, the managing editor right now, on with us talking some college football. Who is the biggest threat in the SEC to maybe give Alabama a good challenge in 2017?
We picked Auburn second in the West. It was a debate between Auburn and LSU. There's things to like about those teams, and there's things not to like. Auburn. We got burned like a lot of people in Auburn a couple of years ago. Bought into the hype, and they disappointed. Now it's kind of what I said earlier, Ryan. Like, do you not pick Auburn this year because 2 years ago they didn't perform up to expectations? Well, we try not to think that way. We try and judge each team on its own merit. I mean, I think Jarrett Stidham is going to be great at quarterback there. I think he's a relatively proven commodity. He did very well at Baylor against the weak part of their schedule, but he's his 5-star quarterback. They have really good talent in the run game. I know they lost a lot on the defensive line. And then LSU, I'm not a huge Ed Orgeron believer. I think some of the problems that they had, they put up huge numbers offensively after he took over against good teams, but they didn't do it against good defenses. And, Matt Canada comes in, much ballyhooed. But, before last year at Pitt, he wasn't exactly a rising star in the coaching world. So, LSU, once again, will have the bodies on defense for the most part. Darius Geis is a great player, good offensive line, questions at quarterback. So, if you ask me right now, Alabama or the field in the West, I would take Alabama. That's not always the case. When we pick them, you'd say, okay, there's 3 or 4 teams that could knock them off. I only see Auburn and LSU as teams that could really threaten Alabama.
All right, going to the SEC East, are you buying the Georgia hype, or you want to stick with Mr. Consistency there, Jim McElwain down in Gainesville?
We picked Georgia, but that doesn't mean I'm buying the hype. I am not. I was just actually on a radio show in Omaha, Nebraska a few minutes ago, and they asked me the most difficult, predictions we made, and it was sorting out the SEC East because I don't like any of these teams. I think all 3 of them are. I'm talking Georgia, Florida, Tennessee. I think all 3 of them are top 25 teams, but I don't think any of them are really top 10 teams. Georgia went 7-5 in the league last year. They lost to Vanderbilt at home. They lost to Georgia Tech at home. They beat Nichols by 2. They weren't a very good team. Now, they return everybody on defense. I know that. Nick Chubb is back, and Sonny Michel. Jacob Eason will be a more seasoned quarterback. But I'm not overly excited about Georgia, but they were kind of the pick because Florida lost a lot of really good players on defense. Still, they'll probably be starting a redshirt freshman at quarterback in Felipe Franks. Tennessee's the team that I think could overachieve this year. I think it's the year after, the year after all the hype. They've lost a lot of good players. Their star power isn't great, but I think they'll have much better team chemistry. So we picked Georgia, but I don't know. As the summer progresses, I might change my own pick to Tennessee.
Wow. So you're buying a little Butch Jones here. I mean, I know they won the offseason championship last year. What would make
but not the state championship.
That's right. That's
lost.
right.
Yeah.
They did not. So what would make you buy them? I guess this year.
I just think better team chemistry. I think they had so much drama last year. I think Bob Shoop coming in as a much ballyhooed defensive coordinator did not. The defense was really bad late in the year. I think he'll run more stuff he's comfortable with. I think he had a veteran group last year where he didn't really implement the stuff that he likes to run because he tried to keep it simple for those guys that had been there for a while. So they still have talent. I mean, they don't have top 5 talent, but they've recruited very well. There's a lot of good athletes on both sides of the ball. The offensive line should be a team strength this year after being a weakness. if they can get healthy on the defensive line, they should be pretty good on defense. So I'm not saying this is a top 10 team, but I think it's just more of a, don't love Georgia or Florida. That's why I'm kind of high on Tennessee.
Let me go to Florida State. When you look at this game, we're 102 days away from Alabama, Florida State. What are you seeing from the group from Tallahassee?
We picked Florida State first in the Atlantic over Clemson. Really good quarterback play. DeAndre Francois was good last year. The offensive line, you think of Florida State, usually offensive line for being pretty good. They were not good last year. He had to run for his life, and they're I don't know how much better they'll be. They lost their big left tackle, Johnson, Roderick Johnson, I believe, to the NFL draft. I think they're going to be really good on defense. Secondary is really good. Derwin James, that great safety, got hurt early in the year. I think he's going to be probably one of the better players in the country. Obviously they bring in Cam Akers, one of the top running back recruits, and I follow recruiting enough to know the hype that some people say he's one of the best incoming freshmen in several years. So I think you're going to see a lot of him. Good athletes at the wide receiver position, but not a lot of guys with a ton of production in their career. So I think it's a great matchup. Right now, obviously I'd pick Alabama because we have them number one, but I think it's going to be a really good test for the Tide.
Mitch, do you hear from other fan bases in the SEC, you're showing too much love to Alabama? Do you hear that often from these guys?
No.
Okay.
I think people know. It's hard to deny them right now. They are the standard bearer, and they what's your defense? What can you say? I mean, possibly Ole Miss fans can brag, right? Because they beat them twice. That's
but until the NCAA hammer hits, they don't really want to say anything right now. They're like
exactly.
They're worried
keeping
about softball. Right.
Yeah, keeping them out. But so what's anyone going to say? Alabama keeps winning. So no, I mean not really. Our top 25 just came out, so I'm hearing from a lot of fans on Twitter. Some West Virginia fans just totally ripped us apart for not having in the top 25, and then I said, "Oh, sorry, you're 26." It's that magical top 25, but the Mountaineers were 26. So it's hard to shoot holes in the Crimson Tide these days.